All right, so welcome to part two of Switch On Your Brain. So last week we started talking about how powerful the mind is and the brain, and how we do have the power to change our lives really by our thinking and our mindset. And it's actually so much more than just positive affirmations and some of these other tips and tricks that we always hear about and learn. Those are fantastic, but this really is getting into the science behind the brain, the neuroplasticity of it. Today is going to be, I was just saying before, is going to be a little bit sciencey, even more so than last week, but we have got to trudge through that to be able to understand, to be able to make those good choices. And I can't wait to trudge through it, because towards the middle of the book, we get into part two, and we're going to go through it's called a 21-day brain detox together. So that's really neat, because we're learning on the why and what's going on here. We were totally created in such an intricate, fascinating way that it's mind-boggling. As I was reviewing this morning again, the power of your mind. It's no joke. It is serious. It affects your personal life, your family life, your business life, literally everything. So we're going to head into chapter two, and just kind of a quick recap, right? We were talking about basically how last week, how our thinking changes our DNA, right? We went through how our choices are real, right? The thoughts that we're thinking affect our choices, and our choices affect our outcomes, right? And we do have the power over that. But that she said it's not easy. It takes time to retrain and to do all those types of things. She talked about reaction being a really key word. And we talked about how life really is 10% what happens to you, but 90% of how we're reacting to it. And pretty sure every single person that's a mom here can relate to that. I was thinking this morning too, I stayed up a little bit too late, and I had a couple moments this morning where I'm like, I just have to get a few things done, like just go do your thing. But that was my reaction. That had nothing to do with them. So it's really powerful. So I really liked it. We even talked about stress and how that all affects the mind, the body, our physical health, our brain, right? And so we're going to get into chapter two today. And like I said, a little bit sciencey. I'm going to try to just kind of skim over. Please share, raise your hand if there's something that stood out to you. The more that you guys can share and interact, the better of a study that this is. So she starts out Chapter 2 on page 39, choice and your multiple perspective advantage. So the scripture that she's talking about is Colossians 3:15, right? Let your peace from Christ rule in your hearts. And she talks a lot about the heart in these next two chapters, because she says it's great to do positive affirmations and all of that, but often that can actually have a negative effect on people who have a low self-confidence. And I was shocked to hear that, because we've heard over and over again, if you're not confident and if you have insecurities and fears, positive affirmations. But she says right in the book, and I'll read it later, that can actually have a negative effect on you if you're in that situation, because your heart doesn't truly believe it. And there has to be a heart connect. So I thought that was really, really neat. The linked science concept here in this chapter is going to be that choice is real. Right? We do have a free will. It exists. It's not something that's made up. Kendra, I see that you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you that we're reading what are we reading? My brain just went totally blank when I heard how bad my voice is. Karen, what are we reading? It's about affirmations.
We're reading The Secret Code of Success.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Affirmations, right?
That's right. And he talks, and it hit me so hard that, like, I've made a list of affirmations, and I'm like, I hate saying them. I don't say them because I don't believe them. So it's fascinating what you just said.
Yeah, I read that book too. I was wildly fascinated, and that might be something we maybe should go over as a team, into fall or somewhere, because there's a big difference between affirmations and afformations. And again, that gets into the brain science. Yeah, totally true. So, so she's saying here, that your own thinking, right? It can be toxic, or it can be really beneficial. So right at the bottom there, she says, many of us walk through life as though we're victims of events and circumstances of life and biology. We kind of forgo the reality that we've been born and given a free will. And so sometimes it's a security crutch, right? When people are saying, well, that's just how my family is, so I'm going to be like that. And it's this and that and the other thing. If anybody should have a crutch, given some of the things that I've been through in life, right? I should maybe just be curled up in a ball. But that's not reality, right? I always tell people, say, well, doesn't that stuff bother you? Well, yeah, I mean, it's there. But I wouldn't be the person who I am today. And I might have even talked about that last week, right? You have a choice to make. Are you going to allow that to totally cripple you? And are you going to do the victim because it feels a little bit safer? Or are you going to really stand up for what you believe in? On the next page, she says, you're not a victim. I love that. You're not a victim. You can control your reactions. You do have a choice, right? So what are you going to do with those past experiences? It is up to you and not anybody else, and nobody can make that choice for you. I would love for you to post this sentence somewhere. Each week, by the time we're done, you might have a wall full of little things I've told you to post-it note. But post this somewhere and remind yourself, right, I am not a victim. I can control my reactions. I do have a choice. That's really powerful. Put that wherever, slide it into your Bible, post it on your computer, in your car, in your bathroom. I don't know. Somewhere where it's going to be a good reminder for you on days where it feels hard, right? I'm not a victim. If someone maybe didn't have good business ethics, or maybe they treated you poorly when you were out and about in the store, I don't know. Remember, you're not a victim. You can rise above that. Free will is not an illusion. Okay, we fall prey to media by all these proclamations of neuroscientists and this and that and the other thing, right? And researchers. She says they make big questions in the news that say, is free will an illusion? And then everyone's like, ooh, I wonder what that's going to say. But she says this point of view cannot be reconciled with what we know about the human brain and what Scripture says about us as humans. In the New York Times article, a legal analyst even asked, because our brains cause all behavior, could all behavior be potentially excused? Isn't that scary? Okay, I'm a mom of young kids, and we do homeschool, but I still hear a lot about what goes on in the school systems, like you guys. It's really scary what's happening. We're really pushing into that victim mentality. For goodness sakes, they're starting to take dodgeball out of school, right? Because it might offend someone, because they might get hurt. That's real. There's so many things. I talked to so many teachers. I talked to one, right? We were just talking about this dodgeball comment, Julie and I, and Paige's husband is a phys ed teacher, and he said, they can say whatever they want, but dodgeball will not be coming out of my gym. He said, that is just pure fun, right? We have to learn how to not be victims. So it's scary because when you're not educated, you don't have a strong mindset, you just read something in the article, right? And you're just like, oh, and you go with it. That's really dangerous for you, for life, and for people around you. And so she says right here, this is dangerous thinking. They're basically saying that we are not responsible for our actions, which provides an excuse to do whatever we want with no consequences. I would much rather have a consequence and be disciplined than be left to my own devices in that type of mentality and pretty much toss my life in the garbage can. Very scary. We can choose to think the way that God wants us to think. That's how we were created. And there's proof that we have a free will. So on the bottom of page 41, brain activity can be identified in the prefrontal cortex. So that's just above your eyebrows. Guys, ever notice when you're stressed out, you get a little bit of a tension headache right here? Okay, Pearl's a massage therapist. She's going to relate to this. So when I read this, I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? That thing is right above your eyebrows where you feel all that tension. And then she says there's I'm going to butcher this name. Pearl, is it parietal cortex? Is that right? Anyways, it's the top side of your head. 7 to 10 seconds before an actual decision is verbalized. So they can see that on scans. So 7 to 10 seconds before you actually say something, that's showing up on the scan, that's going on up there. In simple terms, what we say and do is based on what we've already built in our minds. We evaluate this information and we make our choices based on this information. Then we choose to build a new thought, and this is what drives what we do and what we say. Do you notice if you have a little bit of a crummy thought and you make a choice, maybe it was a day that you woke up tired and you're a little cranky, or you have a predisposed idea that you formulate about someone, the next time you're in that situation, do you notice it becomes even easier to quickly run down that path, and it's usually the wrong one? And then the next time it's easier and easier. It's because it's actually wiring. It's quite scary, but it was so freeing that there's power to change that. Towards the bottom, we're not driven by forces beyond our conscious control. Hallelujah to that. Thank goodness we are accountable for every single thought and decision that we make. We're highly intelligent beings with a free will, and we are responsible for our choices. I am responsible for every single thing I say and every single thing that I do. Nobody is responsible for that except me, and what's coming out is in the heart. So I've lately been saying to my husband a lot, something will annoy me or I'll be frustrated, and then I'm saying, you know what? That probably shouldn't frustrate me. So what is it in me that's causing that? There's something in me. Maybe it's my own insecurity. Maybe it's a pride. Maybe it's an I don't know what. Maybe it's an overtired. But that shouldn't. So you have to go a step deeper. She says researchers found that believing in free will guides people's choices towards being much more moral and better performers. I would say that's true. Hey, what do you guys think? I would say that that's true. Choice has mental real estate. We kind of talked about that last week. We can observe our own thoughts, and just kind of jumping forward a little bit. On page 45, you get this really crazy, intricate picture of the brain. That about made my eyes go cross-eyed. There's a lot of information in there, a lot of words I don't even know how to pronounce, but I'm going to tell you something. What really stood out to me is that they show the adrenal glands. Okay, you guys have heard me talk a lot, if you know my story, about adrenal fatigue, and I made a lot of videos on it. And why I was so fascinated that now, remember, this is way at the bottom end of the body and the brain is way at the top. Why did she put that together? You know why? Those adrenal glands are responsible for helping you handle stress and just keeping you going. They will fight the longest and the hardest for you. And it's completely linked and related to the choices and thoughts that you're making and the mindset that you're in. So I was really fascinated that that's in there. It just shows again how that connection is so very important. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit because this in between here, again, it's quite sciencey about the signaling in the different parts of the brain and how we're switching those genes, right? By our thoughts, you're switching genes. It's like unzipping your DNA on and off, and you can switch them on and off. So go ahead and kind of take some time to read through there, but hop over to page 51, a little bit up ahead if you have the book. And I have highlighted here the section where it's called From the Gene Myth to the Truth. Because going back to that, well, that's just how I am. Runs in my family, right? It's my DNA. My dad's like that. My mom's like that. You have the power to change that, and it's so neat. She says, we've been living under a myth called the gene myth, which locates the ultimate power over health and mental well-being in the untouchable realm of the genes. So I hear that a lot, especially with helping a lot of women through anxiety, through depression. There is that mindset that I will never get over my depression because that's how I am. I was predisposed. Doesn't matter what I do. I'm always going to struggle. You hear it a lot about alcoholism. You hear it a lot about negative mentality and mindset as well, right? Well, my mom was just negative. And you actually see it, right? You have a child who grows up in a home with a really negative parent who's just non-encouraging and just always on top of them, right? You do typically see that child come into adulthood with the same type of a mindset. Not always. but it's often, but they're linking that to I'm just predisposed, I have no choice, right? But you do. She says almost daily, another headline pops up in the highly fashionable concept of a gene for this or a gene for that. You're an alcoholic or depressed, or you battle with learning disabilities because you have the gene for alcoholism or depression or learning disabilities or whatever. Genes may create an environment within us in which a problem may grow, like a predisposition, but they do not produce the problem. We produce it through our choices. Our choices act as signals that unzip that DNA, which I spoke about early in the chapter. So that's when she was getting into the really sciencey. So she's saying, yes, there could be a predisposition to that because of the DNA and genes, but then you make the choice if you're going to zip or unzip. Isn't that interesting? Fascinating. Next page, she says this thinking removes choice and accountability from the equation. It's scientifically and spiritually inaccurate. You control your genes. Your genes do not control you. Genes may determine physical characteristics, but not psychological phenomena. On the contrary, our genes are constantly being remodeled in response to life experience. Now that is crazy awesome. So even if we made some crummy choices, right, or we were put in some environments that maybe weren't ideal, there is absolute research and science showing that through life your brain keeps changing. So just because it might have gotten, it's kind of like dropping a ball of Play-Doh on the ground, right? You drop a ball of Play-Doh, it kind of gets a little bit of dense and misshapes a little bit. You can pick that Play-Doh up and you can roll it in your hands, right? Like we're clay in the potter's hands. You can roll that and you can reshape your Play-Doh so that the rest of your life goes in a different direction. I thought that was so cool. We are not victims of our biology. She says this so often. So if she's saying it so often, it's really powerful. Hebrews 11:1, she quotes this, says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Whatever you believe and hope for becomes substance on a physical level, and you act upon this. This process can move in either direction, negative or positive. We get to choose. So in summary of chapter 2, a few really important things. Number 1, the biggest one is you are not a victim. I want you to go out into your day today telling yourself, I am not a victim of the circumstances that are around me. Number 2, free will is not an illusion. We all have it. Do not ever let anybody tell you that you do not have the power in you to choose and that that is your absolute privilege. Okay, you own that. No one can steal that from you. Whether you are in a good situation or bad, you have the power to choose. Our free will influences our thinking, of course, right? The choices that we're making influence our mindsets, our thinking, our opinions on things. And again, we're talking personal and business here, which is why I really like this book, because you can transfer this into both. What we say and do is based on what we have already built into our minds. Would you guys say that's true? Right? How we've reacted before is how we are going to react much more easily the next time. And it does take a little bit of grit to be able, like sometimes I feel like my eyes go cross-eyed and my eyebrows go 2 different directions as you're like, I want to do this, but I know I need to do this, especially as a mom. Choice is a mental real estate around the front of the brain. It's real. Right? There's actual components of your brain right here in the front. These choices take up space. They're not an invisible thing. They are tangible. All thinking activity is real. This thinking creates signals that unzip that DNA, and our genetic makeup fluctuates by the minute based on what we're thinking and choosing. Do you know that today you can completely rewire some of those things from yesterday, because it can change moment to moment. So if you messed up yesterday, you have a totally clean slate today. Thank goodness each morning is brand new. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter what happened in your business for the last 6 months or a year. It does not matter. You stand up today. Today is brand new. You stand up today and you walk. You turn yourself in that direction of where you want to go. Don't worry about what's happened in the past. right? Doesn't matter. And the last point there, again, going right back to the first one, we are not victims of our biology. Love it, love it, love it. So that was chapter 2. And chapter 3, we're over on page 55 now. Still about the choices, how that changes your brain. I highlighted the linked science concept at the front. At the top, I should say. She writes, through our thoughts, we can be our own microsurgeons as we make choices that are actually going to change the circuits in our brain. That's almost too much for me to comprehend. Okay, our Creator is so unreal that that's even possible. Like, it's almost too much to grasp. Just chew on that a little bit. You have the power to be your own little micro brain surgeon, to change that out. So right there at the bottom, she says, our choices, the natural consequences of our thoughts and imagination, get under the skin of our DNA. And this is where it turns those certain genes on and off. It actually changes the structure of our neurons. She says the scientific power of our mind to change the brain is called epigenetics. It's kind of fun to say that word. Epigenetics. And she says, and spiritually, it's as a man thinks, so is he. And that comes out of Proverbs 23:7. Science and the Bible, actually completely go together. It doesn't matter, right? You can't refute that the two totally line up. It says the way the brain changes as a result of mental activity is scientifically called neuroplasticity. We talked a little bit about that last week. And so think of that ball of Play-Doh, right? It's pliable, right? Spiritually, this is called renewing of the mind. So whether you look at it scientifically or spiritually, it's actually the same concept. Genes are dormant until they're switched on by signal. They have potential, right? But they have to be activated to release that potential. They have to be unzipped. So again, that potential, you could have potential to head totally in the direction of success, positivity, being that, woman that you want to be. But that same potential is there in some of those genes that might have got plopped in there, right, from mom or dad, to also go down the other road. But we're at the crossroads and we get to choose which one are we going to unzip. Sometimes there's subconscious choices. We have to be really aware of those, again, because of just the environment you're in. You have to be really steadfast in your what you're doing with your mindset. Epigenetics is referred to as a new science, but actually it is totally an ancient science. Epigenetics is the fact that your thoughts and choices impact your physical brain and your body, your mental health, and your spiritual development. If we want to talk about cancer for a minute, you hear a lot of oncologists and nurses saying that they can almost tell who's going to overcome cancer when they walk into the ward and get admitted for treatment. A lot of it based on their mindset. Now, can we be a really positive person and still things just happen? Of course. I'm not saying that if you're not well, that it's something you did wrong. Please do not leave here with that. But I'm just saying there is definitely a link. You see it even in kids, right? Thriving in school or not. If they just have this frumpy, disrespectful attitude, you can tell there's just a wall up, right? Or if they're just at least open, yeah, this is hard, but I'll try. It's kind of the same with our health. She says an interesting point on page 57 towards the top. A cell in your brain and a cell in your kidney contain the exact same DNA, and while in utero, so they're emerging and developing, cells differentiate into either a brain cell or a kidney cell only when crucial epigenetic processes turn the right genes on or off. I had to chew on that a little bit. It sounded a little confusing. It's just essentially going back to it's all there, but which way are we going to fire, right? Based on a lot of different things. Our thoughts can impact the next 4 generations. So studies showing that epigenetic signal can affect genetic expression was done with mice. Okay, guys, this is really interesting. You're gonna like this because this actually relates to health which is the industry we're in. I'm going to totally butcher this, but it's called the agouti gene. If someone knows how to say that right, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what we're going to call it because it's egg and out and an I. Okay, agouti gene, which caused these mice to be fat, have a yellow coat, and have an increased incidence of cancer and diabetes. When this agouti gene occurs in humans, it's related to obesity and type 2 diabetes. Okay, you guys know where I'm going with this? The whole sugar, gut health, okay? In an experiment just before conception, now hold on to your hats, this is where you're going to find this fascinating. The agouti mother mice were fed a nutritional chemical called a methyl group. Hello, methylated vitamins in our X factor. Okay, they were given a methyl group in the form of B vitamin. The result was that the offspring of this group did not get fat or yellow. So an external signal, which is the nutritional methyl, changed their genetical pattern. They pretty much just said gut health rules a lot. That's what I got out of that. Giving them methylated vitamins, and it changed their predisposition to obesity, type 2 diabetes, yada, 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 even the look of their coat, or for us, our skin, right? I thought that was neat. This showed that not only does food change generational patterns, but so does thinking. Can we just send this book to every single person in our life that doesn't believe us and have a problem? Like, yeah, I'm not going to go there. So the scientific mysteries, page 58. Why one member, okay, here's interesting. This is not about the mice now, this is about twins. Example of this, a mystery. Why does one member of a pair of identical twins develop asthma and the other one doesn't? Right? Because they have the same genome, so they should respond the same, but their individual perception of the world is different. Right? You have two twins, they're made up identical, the exact same, but as they're laying there in their cute little cradles, they're perceiving things differently. Why? Because they have free will to choose. They formulate their own opinions and their thoughts. And she says, as well as their ability to choose means they think and react differently, which alters their genetic expression. That's wild. That is just wild, 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 wild. That makes me want to put my babies right back on the inside of me and start all over again. Because I'm pretty sure I helped predispose some things that we need to change. Right? But we're going forward. Today is brand new. So she says the good, bad, and the ugly at the bottom. The good, bad, and the ugly do come down through the generations, but your mind is the signal, right? So those genes are there, but your own mind is the signal. Therefore, we're not predestined to live out negative patterns of our forebears. You can instead make a life choice to overcome by tweaking that pattern of expression. Praise the Lord. I am so thankful that I am not, I think we've all looked back and been like, oh my gosh, right? Our moms and dads tried to the best of their ability, I think, with how they were doing, how they felt, and what they knew. But praise the Lord that I can make some changes. And my kids are going to say the exact same thing, right? I hope that I don't do what mom did. Praise the Lord that they can. I have a huge star beside this. It touches my heart because of anxiety and depression, but in the middle of page 59, there's a quote here. Often example, people say something like this: my mother had depression, and that's why I have depression, and now my daughter's suffering from depression. Then the epigenetic marks are activated. If you say that out loud, you've just activated those markers. The thinking and speaking out the problem serve as a single signal that makes it a reality. I need some duct tape on my mouth. Yep, right across the front. Yes, that's really wild. You have to be really careful about what you're proclaiming out loud. This goes back to Okay, Kendra was talking about reading The Secret Code of Success. They talk about affirmations. You know why that's powerful? Look it up if you haven't read about it. Is because when you say a statement out loud in the form of a question, your brain hears you and goes to work trying to solve it. And that's where the science comes from right now. So that's what she's saying. When you're audibly verbalizing something, there is truth to that. And it's why affirmations work, right? You want to link this to the business. How did I earn that leaders retreat cruise so fast? That's an affirmation. Do you know what just happened? My brain, something just went dink. I got to help. I got to figure out the answer to that. That's what your brain's doing. So say that over and over. Your brain is working like a hamster on a wheel trying to figure out how you're going to earn that leaders retreat cruise so fast. It's that gene switching on and off. So it's really powerful if you keep telling yourself, oh, I can't do a live video. I can't talk to people the way that she does. What are you telling your brain? That it can't. But if you just say something like, I have no idea how I did such a great job on that live video. I've never done one before. Right? It's a different type of a mindset, Okay, if we don't wake up to this truth, this is huge. It's going to catch us when we're not looking. And before you know it, you're going to be living a life that you really don't want to be living. If this is you, this is the good news. You can change. Okay, here's your next Post-it note. I can change. I'm going to start asking for pictures of where are you putting your Post-it notes. You can change. Write that down. Predisposition versus destiny. That's another hot topic. People say, right, well, I'm predisposed, so that's my destiny. It's why, do you guys, seriously, only 3% of ambassadors are gold and above in the whole company. This is why. It's because they've already decided I'll never be able to do that. Oh, it works for her, but it doesn't work for me, right? My mom was shy, so I'm shy too, right? Whatever it is, don't believe that lie. That's a lie. At the bottom here it says, okay, here lies the key. The sins of our parents, and in sins we're talking mindset, we're talking poor choices, that whole gamut. Okay, it creates a predisposition because you're exposed in the environment. It does not create a destiny. Okay, you are not responsible for something. Oh, hang on, I read that wrong. You're not responsible for something you're predisposed to because of ancestral decisions. Thank you. That I'm not predisposed to something because of a choice that my parents might have made or my grandparents. Right? That's not my destiny. I might have to work a little harder at overcoming that mindset, but it's not my destiny. You're responsible, however, to be aware of those predispositions and evaluate them and choose to eliminate them. That's a big deal. Okay, we're also responsible for our own choices and can apply the work of the cross and confess, repent, and eliminate those from the future. In addition, our choices alter the expression of our genes, which can then be passed on to our children, our grandchildren, right? And that's where we get into that predisposition. The negative alternative is that you can choose to accept them and live into them, but do not forget that you have to take responsibility for that. If it feels so comfy, cozy, and it just feels easier for you to oh, that's just how we are. I hear that all the time in health and in lifestyle choices, right? Oh, my parents never got ahead in life. Their businesses always failed. It's never going to work for me either. It's just how we are. You got to take responsibility for that. Because that's going to determine the success of your own life. Are you okay with that? Do you want to just live mediocrity like that? I don't. Even if it's a hard uphill climb, I want to be responsible. The very act of accepting predispositions and living into them becomes a signal that activates, and that's how you become that fat and yellow mouse. Right? Yeah, Amanda, you're right. Those generational bondages, that is a real thing. Yeah, so this is the difference here. What your mind creates, only your mind can take away. So you can add and you can take away. You can be that ball of Play-Doh. Structure, there is a structure in the middle of the brain called I love this word, the hippocampus. We'll just call it the hippopotamus. The hippopotamus of your mind. Scientists have found that in a loving, nurturing environment, okay, acetyl genetic markers increase on the genes in the, I'm going to call it the hippopotamus. It's the hippocampus. They keep us calm and peaceful. The more acetyl markers, the more peace genes in your hippopotamus. But toxic choices produces the opposite effect. Okay, these acetyl markers reduce, and the methyl, there's that methylated, methyl markers increase, causing us to have less peace. Okay, so it's really, really important. Your mindset controls. And down here, we're going to talk about serotonin and oxytocin in a minute. But whether we switch on happiness, peace, and good health, or switch on anxiety, worry, and negativity, we are changing the physical substance of our brain. So what are you choosing today? Right? What are you going to choose to camp out on in your mind because of that? If you're coming on in a cell phone, if you can please mute yourself. Heather, my sweet friend, can you hit your mute? The brain reorganizes throughout our lifetime. Now scientists know that the brain has an amazing ability. One second. Hi, Heather.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Can you do me a quick favor on your, oh yeah, there we go. I'm just going to mute you, okay? Well, I'm just going through this. I got it. We're good. There we go. Okay. Scientists know that the brain has the amazing ability to reorganize throughout life. So we talked about that just before. So what happened in the past does not have to be the future. If the brain can get worse by constantly focusing on the problem, it can also get better by understanding how to eliminate it and replace that. Right? That is the power to change. So then she gives us this fancy picture. Again, someone can go through there and find the hippopotamus section. I didn't even highlight, I just highlighted the adrenals again because that was so important. Page 63, I better check the time. Okay, we're doing good. Page 63, neuroplasticity. It can work for or against us. I'm going to let you guys read through that. Look it up if you don't have the book yet, but that's just that pliability. She says we can use it to renew our minds. The overriding concept is to apply that neuroplasticity in the correct direction by rewiring the event with positive thinking. So Philippians 4:8, right? The things that we're focusing on, things that are true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent. Those are the things that you want to be thinking about during the day. And you will have to make some choices because it's actually a lot easier to lean the other way. I don't know why. I think it just builds our brain muscles, but it's easier to lean in the other way. So you have to make that active choice. We become the person, right, that we consciously choose. Top of 64, it means the physical substrate of the memory becomes weakened, vulnerable, malleable, and able to be manipulated. So in practicing daily, the person wires the healthy new thoughts even more deeply in the mind. I love that. On page 65, again, going into the media and being really careful what you're reading in the media. And she says, those who believe that you are just your brain believe that you don't have a free will. That's scary. We definitely have a free will. I think we're hearing that loud and clear. She says, as we think, we're making the brain fire in different patterns, right? One brain generates more energy. This is so neat. Some of you are on your cell phones right now. One brain generates more energy and electrical pulses in one day than all of the cell phones on the planet. Crazy. That's crazy. There's a lot of cell phones out there. So we have the power to make changes. We do not have a spirit of fear. Okay, guys? We have a spirit of love, sound mind, and power. That's who we are. That's who we are created to be. Do not let media, doctors, or other people in your life convince you otherwise. You have the power in your mind to change that negative, toxic manifestation. you do. Perception counts, flipping right over to 66. And again, she says research shows that there's a negative side to the positive statements and affirmations. That's what I talked about earlier. I had kind of jumped ahead, right? So if you have self-doubt, lack of confidence, and you're saying these things, I've been there. I'm a stronger personality, and even I felt like that, right? So if you're saying affirmations every day that you don't actually believe, it is just going to drag you down because it's going to be discouraging, and you're going to be like, these aren't working. This is just so stupid. I think he says in the book, Secret Code of Success, he says, you get the feeling, this is so stupid. You have to work with your brain, right? So call it out loud. You don't want to be part of the statistic, because she says showing these individuals, they actually can get a lower self-esteem and feel worse repeating these positive statements. Don't become part of the statistics. The world may tell us that the mind is what the brain does, but God tells us that the brain will do what the mind tells it to do. There's something that you take of this what you want. There's something I've done with my kids since they were small. I don't know why I started. It might have probably started out of anxiety. I'm not going to lie. Every single night out loud, when my kids are praying at bedtime, they always say one of the things, their gratitude, thank you that my body is healthy and strong. That is something that is said in our house over and over and over. Because I do believe, and I've taught them, I do believe that the body has the power to heal itself, right? Do we live in a perfect world? No. Is everyone going to be healed this side of heaven? Unfortunately not. But I think that I'm certainly going to do what we can do on our end, and I do think mindset is a huge factor in that. Choices are real. You're free to make your choices, right? But you also have to be responsible for the outcomes. Moment by moment of each day, you can choose who you will be in the next moment. Who are you choosing to be later on today? You can choose. Caroline Leaf has a quote here. She says, I know that as a scientist and a believer, paying attention to my thoughts and purposefully focusing my mind leads to really great transformations. I think that's a huge, huge thing. 67 in the middle, you have the power to change. I really want to drill that into you. Your patterns of genetic experience do not determine who you are and what you do. If you don't believe that you have the power to change your thoughts and control your choices, you are not going to do it. Anybody can say, I want success in this business. If you don't truly believe, though, that you have the power to change some of those things going on, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're going to be left frustrated. So we got to first work. This is why we're going through a mindset book. And this is why Fallon Black, this has literally changed the direction of her life, right? If there's one story you hang on to, let it be hers. It is just encouraging and fascinating. Doing your own brain surgery or neuroplastic intervention of toxic thinking and renewing your mind is based on regular exercising of that brain. It won't happen by itself. You have to work that muscle and roll that ball Play-Doh around in your hand and get it molded to the right shape. Change takes place over time through continual persistence. Ready for your next sticky note? I will be persistent. Write that in capitals. I will be persistent. Okay? Don't give up on yourself. There's way too much out there. It's okay if you messed up yesterday. It's okay if you messed up last week, but stand back up and be persistent, because it's persistence that's going to get you to where you want to be. And yes, sometimes it's going to feel hard. I would be totally lying to you if I said that it was all a walk in the park, but it is. I promise you it's so worth it. My own journey has had some really hard spots, but it's been so worth it. I've learned a lot. So the summary, through our thoughts, we can be our own brain surgeons. You don't even have to go to university, guys. You don't even have to go to med school. You can be your own brain surgeon. Choices become signals that change our brain and our body. Huge, just like the gut-brain connection, right? And we know that the gut is where 80% of issues start. So this would make really much sense to us. You're not destined to live out the negative patterns of your parents and grandparents, aunts, uncles, all the rest of it. You're not. You're predisposed a little bit. So be aware, be alert, and then you can make some really great choices. You're not responsible. Okay, she just repeats again. So it's really important. Not responsible for predispositions because of environments and situations that you were placed into. Here's our hippopotamus again. When you make a bad choice, genes switch on in the hippocampus that dampen that stress response. We want to make sure that our hippopotamus is healthy. We want to have the right amount, right? We want to be able to handle stress well so that it's not suppressing other things in the body. Stress is a huge factor, huge, huge, huge. So just work at it a little bit at a time. The brain has the amazing ability to reorganize throughout life, changing its structure and function through thinking alone. That's very powerful. If you change your perception, you change your biology, you become the master of your life instead of the victim. And that's a really good place to end. We're not victims. Someone want to read me the sticky notes that you wrote down today? You'll have to unmute. Who was really good at note taking? Okay, Joelle. Oh, hang on. Okay, you're good.
I got it. So from chapter 2, you are not a victim. You can control your reactions. You do have a choice. And then from chapter 3, you can change, and I will be persistent.
Persistent in changing. Yeah, you can do it. Anyone else write down something that was really, really good? Or just thoughts on the whole thing?
I do have a thought. Years ago, my kids, when they graduated, my mom had a friend she worked with that was the same, her kids were the same age as my kids. And both her kids went to university. And my mom said to her, how is that happen? None of my kids went to university and none of my kids' kids went to university. How is it that happened? And she said it was not an option not to. And my mom's like, I don't understand. And she says, we put money away the day our kids were born because they were going to university. And my mom's like, oh. And I thought about it and I looked at my mom when she told me this years ago and I said, you know what, Mom? You know what we grew up hearing? You're going to work just like my dad did, just like my dad's dad did. We're laborers.
There you go.
And I just thought, wow. Powerful, what we tell our children.
Yeah.
Very true. I actually found, I've been doing this since 2009, Heidi. I had no idea that you were into this stuff. And to be honest, my mom's been actually really negative when I've told her about it. She tries to tell me that it's satanic. Seriously. And it's really sad because it's something that's helped me with my condition, right? To get your body relaxed. Because when you're at ease, you can't be diseased, right? So whenever I have a dislocation, I just get to my place and like I've actually trained myself to talk to my cells. And I know it sounds really weird, but you can. And you can get rid of disease. I read this story. This guy, he seriously cured his AIDS with laughter. All him and his wife did was watch happy videos, comedy shows for months. He cured his AIDS with the way he thought and the things he watched. It's phenomenal. I've actually told Mandy about it, but I don't tell many people about it because it's not received so well. Like to all of my group of friends, not everybody's, they get turned off, you know, and it's upsetting because it's so amazing. It's so amazing.
Well, the brain is powerful. Like it is crazy. Yeah, it's you can't refute that. Laughter is huge because it releases all those, you know, oxytocin, happy hormones, you know? So, no, it's true. I fully believe it. Yeah. Good. Okay. I'm just going to let you know what to read for next week. we are going to go through chapters 4 and 5 because it's not actually too long. They're both quite short. So it's from page 71 to 92. And if you don't have the book, I'll try and do a really thorough recap. But yeah, this was much more sciencey. You guys did amazing. And we're going to start really getting into now, right? Because now we're probably already chomping at the bit. Like, just tell me what to do. Like, I want to get there already. And we are going to get there. But we'll start with that. And during this week, just really kind of chomp on that a little bit, right? Chomp about being aware of some of your predispositions, right? Some of those natural tendencies, and start, even if it's just here and there, start making those choices. You know what? I feel like doing this, but actually I'm going to say or do this right now. And each time you do that, you're going to slowly start rewiring and doing that brain surgery in your brain. So we will be back next week, Saturday at 10 a.m., same Zoom ID number, and we'll go through chapters 4 and 5.